Here now to tell us more about the good behavior game are Celia Arriaga and Helen Walsh. They provide training and support to teachers using the game in Seattle schools. And welcome to both of you. Well, let's talk more about how all of this works. Celia, I know you've been working with the game for over a year now. What kind of impact have you seen in the classrooms?
Well, I had the opportunity to go visit several classrooms before the game was implemented, and I was there to count the number of disruptions or spleens, and for about 15 minutes or so. And at the beginning of before they started implementing the game, I was counting a lot of spleens in several classrooms. But once the teachers started implementing the game, I saw a huge change. So the teacher would announce that the game was going to start, and the kids would just get quiet immediately. It was like magic. And then they would start doing their work immediately. And they would usually stay like that while the game was going on. But then when the game was over, then the disruptions started happening again. But after a while, and little by little, the kids started paying more attention. They started to be a little more focused, and they were more on task. I remember I walked into a classroom once, and I assumed that the kids were playing the game because everything was really quiet. This class in particular had been very disruptive at the beginning. And so the kids are on task, they're very quiet, and I'm waiting to see when the game is going to be over. And instead the teacher announces that they're going to play the game. Now I was just like totally surprised. I could not believe it. I wanted to jump up and down. And so I've seen kids definitely being able to learn to their full potential while they're playing the game, and even when they're not playing the game. But I'm also seeing students being nicer to each other. They're more cooperative, they're more respectful, and really working together to create a more positive learning environment.
Helen, it sounds like it takes a while for this to kind of catch on, and for maybe not just the students, but the teacher also to make this work.
Well, and I think there's several ingredients to the game. There's playing the game, but there's also some other strategies that they can use throughout the school day. And I think that once those get in place over time, that's when you start to see the changes, like things of having the students be able to make transitions better, called beat the timer. And so if they're using that strategy, I've noticed that initially the amount of time that was just spent in organizing, going from one station to another station or lining up for the door would take an incredible amount of time. But with some of these simple strategies they're using throughout the day whenever they have transitions, and they put the timer on and they say, I know you can do it. I know by the end of 1 minute everybody will have their things away, will be able to move on. And they do it. And it's so amazing to see that how much more time it gives the teacher to actually teach, rather than managing the disruptions and the chaos that can happen around change and going on to a new activity.
Have you, do you have any specific stories or students that really stood out in particular classes where you saw this big change?
Well, I can think of one student that was a first grader last year. So every time that I would come to visit that classroom, I was sitting almost behind him. And almost every single time he'd be so disruptive. He would never be doing what he was supposed to be doing, getting out of their chairs and distracting other students as well. And even when the kids were playing the game, he sometimes would refuse to play the game. He would say, this is stupid, I don't want to do it. So he was constantly getting into trouble, and sometimes when I was there, he would be sent to the office. And little by little, he started to behave a little differently, and he was paying more attention. He was with the teacher a little bit, and the teacher, as she noticed that this kid was more engaged, she started writing the student toodle notes, what we call toodle notes, and acknowledging that behavior. And he started taping all the toodle notes on his desk. And this one time I was there and he's like showing me all his doodle notes because he was so proud of what he was accomplishing. So this student is now in 2nd grade, and I cannot believe the difference. I mean, this kid, when I was just there today actually, he is sitting still and paying attention and being engaged. He raises his hand when he has a question instead of just, doing whatever he was doing before. And he loves to play the game. He gets so excited when his team wins. And so I noticed a huge difference. And the teacher just recently told me too that somebody in the office had asked if this one student had been moved to a different school because they hadn't seen him in the office anymore.
Well, that's a good thing. That's
yeah.
a good thing. Helen, let's talk a bit about some of the research that supports the science behind playing this game, and also really how it affects the brain. Tell me more about that.
Well, a lot has to do with, at this age, the whole prefrontal cortex is the impulsive behaviors, or they're not at that age quite able to manage a lot of the impulses. So what this game does is it gives the students some practice in this self-regulation. So it's for a certain period of time they're playing a game, then they know at that point that I can delay some, I can sit still, I can focus, and then when they do what's the granny wacky prizes, they are excited and they get to do that, but then they practice calming down right away. So it really teaches the students, and it allows the students to build those skills and that part of the brain that's really starting to regulate some of their impulses.
Besides the granny wacky prizes, did you find any of these other games that the students really like the best or really stands out and works for them?
Well, I think one of the ones is it's called the secret game. So they usually announce when they're doing the game, and the teacher will be saying who the teams are and marking down the spleens, disruptions, and encouraging the good behavior, the PAX behavior. And a secret game is when the teacher is not letting them know when the game's being played. So it comes as a surprise to the students, and all of a sudden it's the time's up, and she'll say, well, he or she will say, I just had played the game, and everybody won the game, and they can play the prizes. But I think it's that part of, it's not always predictable. And so students are now extending from that established time, well, I have to show this kind of behavior only in the 3 minutes that we play the game. It's like this game could be played anytime throughout the day. And so kids really love being surprised that, oh, it happened and we were doing it.
Celia, after this starts to work in a classroom, is there any point or any danger here where the kids say, oh, this isn't that much fun anymore, to keep the positive energy going, or is that on the teacher?
Well, my experience as a coach, I have never seen a class where the kids are not excited about playing the game, never. But it always helps to introduce new games, and kids love that. But teachers are also very creative, and for example, I have a teacher right now that is challenging her students to win one game every single day where there are no spleens, no disruptions whatsoever for 5 days. So in 1 week, if everybody wins one game, on Friday they'll get to watch a movie during recess. So the kids get really super excited about doing that. And something similar to what Helen was talking about, where the teacher takes a stick. They have the names of all the students on a stick, and so she'll take a stick out, and she will not tell who the kid is, the name of the student. And she will also not say for how long they're going to play the game. So it's like it creates a lot of excitement, and they don't, the students don't know whose name it is on the stick. So if at the end of when the timer goes off, if the person, the student whose name was on the stick was doing his thing, he's doing his work, then the class wins. So this is especially powerful when you have students who are very challenging. and their name is on the stick. Sometimes the teacher says, oh, it was whoever, and maybe it wasn't, but then the student gets to feel very, very proud because they win for the whole class. And we're also very creative. We dress as grannies for Halloween and went into the classrooms with our wigs and the whole thing, and boy, the kids were absolutely accelerating. They were just so happy. And some of them didn't know that it was us. Now today I went to a class and they said, oh, there's Granny. But, and then we're thinking about doing that again and going into a class and maybe teach a lesson on social skills. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
How about the students that are in special education or those that are English language learners? How does this help them, or does it?
Well, I think in those situations, those are usually smaller classes anyway, and particularly when we look at a special education class, that a lot of the activities and a lot is based on a one-to-one. And so one thing that the good behavior game does is it really works on teams, that it's not the individual that wins, it's the team that wins. And so where I've seen it extremely beneficial is in a special ed classroom where it's not the individual child, it's the team wins, and that they can learn those skills of how do you not only regulate yourself, but also be a positive influence for your teammate, and how do you encourage them rather than get upset at them. And so just that those opportunities to work as a team, to build those skills and empathy for others, I think has been really, really helpful.
For the two of you, what's most rewarding out of this?
I do think it's that seeing students be able to find a way to control and regulate themselves. I think that they want so much to learn and be part of a team, and it's very understandable the distractions that happen, and sometimes it's not just the disruptions, it's the lack of attention, the doing anything but focusing. And so the game really reinforces being on task and being engaged in learning and being kind to one another. So to see students be able to have some control over their behavior, and I think that they're getting that practice on a regular basis so that it becomes part of the voluntary choices that they can make.
All right. Well, best of luck with this here in the future, and more success. Both Helen and Celia, thank you very much for joining us to tell us about the good behavior game. If I had this game when I was an elementary school student, maybe I would have not gotten into so much trouble along the way. But it's obviously helping all of those other young kids there today. Thank you for joining us for this edition of School Beat. I'm Enrique Cerna. We'll see you next time.